Neuroscience has successfully mapped the physical wiring of the brain. We can trace the electrochemical path of a thought across a synapse, yet the actual experience of having that thought, consciousness itself, remains elusive. The core challenge is translation. We must find a way to convert subjective, qualitative human experiences, the vividness of a memory or the sharp sting of grief, into objective biological mechanisms. The prevailing modern framework for this problem is Integrated Information Theory, or IIT. It suggests that consciousness is defined by a system's capacity to integrate information. Before searching for brain mechanisms, IIT establishes phenomenological axioms. These are treated as self-evident truths about human experience that do not require formal proof, intended to guide the search for specific physical structures. Researcher Marek Pokropski identifies a critical vulnerability here. If these foundational axioms of human experience are flawed, the resulting neurobiological correlates will be inaccurate. IIT relies on the axiom of exclusion, claiming that every conscious experience has definite, sharp borders. Actual human experience, however, is fluid. Peripheral vision or multitasking create overlapping, blurred experiential states. Rebuilding the model requires an accurate phenomenology, one that expands through depth psychology and eventually anchors in functional neural topology. Understanding the brain's physical networks depends on correctly defining the philosophical shape of the self. IIT rests on a tension between two axioms. Composition acknowledges experience is structured, while exclusion dictates experiences cannot overlap. Yet our unified consciousness suggests exclusion is incomplete. Perceiving a red and green circle moving simultaneously shows the borders of experience are not rigid silos. An alternative foundation appears in the work of Karol Wojtyla. He analyzed the human spirit as an observable anthropological element, visible through the metaphysical and phenomenological study of moral action. Wojtyla defined spirit by its dual capacity to integrate the whole person and simultaneously transcend personal boundaries. He identified this as vertical transcendence, the process by which a person determines their own integrated self in relation to truth and the good. Its count boundaries to give itself to others. If human consciousness is defined by its ability to transcend its own borders, a scientific search restricted to isolated brain mechanisms is looking in the wrong place. In psychological terms, a localized, bounded consciousness describes the adult ego, or the persona. Transpersonal theory moves studying developmental phases that extend past the borders of the individual ego. Abraham Maslow, a pioneer in the field, argued that healthy human development requires experiences of connectedness that reach outside the self. Viktor Frankl's work similarly suggests that the quest for meaning inherently pushes the psyche beyond personal dimensions and into broader aspects of humanity. These transpersonal concepts align with Carl Jung's theory of the collective unconscious. Jung described a phylogenetic, inherited substratum shared among all humans, existing independently of any single individual's personal life experience. Archetypes and instincts operate as primordial forces beneath the ego, indicating that human consciousness is deeply influenced by these shared structures. Both modern transpersonal psychology and classic depth psychology reinforce the idea that the mind is structurally wired for integration with the other. Inquisitive. How does this horizontal transcendence physically manifest in the biology of the brain? Contemplative neuroscience provides a window into this process, specifically through collaborations with long-term practitioners to study the neuroplasticity of transcendence. This map highlights the primary neural correlate of the localized ego, the default mode network, or DMN. Responsible for self-referential cognition and autobiographical memory, it represents the boundaries of the isolated self. Research shows that sustained mental training visibly downregulates activity in these core hubs. Meditation reconfigures the mind's boundaries, shifting cognitive resources away from rigid internal isolation. As the DMN downregulates, functional connectivity with the salience and executive control network strengthens. This large-scale neural synchrony suggests that transcendence is a biological integration of the self with wider networks, aligning the neurobiology with the observations of Wojtyla and Jung. Integrating these three levels creates a complete model of consciousness. The physiological shift into large-scale synchrony serves as the mechanistic substrate for ego transcendence.
This psychological expansion is the empirical realization of Wojtyla's horizontal transcendence. This integrated model presents a significant challenge to the exclusion axiom found in integrated information theory. The brain's optimization for network coupling contradicts the idea that consciousness exists in strict, non-overlapping silos. Mapping consciousness requires acknowledging that the localized ego is a biological and psychological starting point, rather than the mind's totality. Whether we use the language of spirit, the collective unconscious, or neural synchrony, we are describing the same underlying phenomenon. Ultimately, human consciousness functions as an open system, biologically and psychologically organized for continuous integration and transcendence.